There have been something like 50,000 pages of documents exchanged in this case. I do not have them committed to memory.
And that's fine.
But I do not believe this is the most recent that was produced. I know that there was a series of them produced at some point, and I can't tell, Your Honor, exactly when that was. I can tell you that there were others produced, and I just don't.
I don't see any harm in admitting 2012, and if we find a more recent one, that's fine. I just don't see how that harms anything.
Very well, Your Honor. If I could, we understood that Dr. Hanna was going to be the first witness this morning. Am I now hearing that Dr. Corcoran is?
No, we're not. No, we're not putting on Dr. Corcoran first. And I should have emailed you, but the decision wasn't made till 11:30 last night. We're not going to call Dr. Hanna. You don't have to worry about that. But it's not going to change things because we're still calling Dr. Corcoran, but we're not calling him until the remainder of the people that we talked about are taken care of.
So after they spent all evening preparing for a live witness that you told them that was going to be first up, at 11:30 you make the decision and then you don't even bother to tell them?
Judge,
I mean, how is that?
Midnight, it would have been midnight by the time I told them. I did not believe it would be
Judge.
any good. And
Judge, they sent us other things at midnight. They sent us, frankly, this exhibit list at midnight. So, and we get up early and work in the morning for the day's preparation. So that excuse is unacceptable.
The exhibit list was sent yesterday. It was pared down.
Right, I know, agreed. I'm just saying we were working at midnight, as were you.
Just saying.
and we had prepared for him as well. But we made a decision based on speaking with Dr. Hanna and in preparation as part of trial tactics that we think that the jury has heard quite enough about ketamine and about CRPS, and calling yet another doctor.
What time did you make the decision not to call them?
11:30, 10:30, 11:30, because we could not get in touch with him. I actually made the decision earlier, but I could not get in touch with him. And in fact, his office administrator was in touch with me, telling me that he was set to go, and I was sure. And we committed it and decided that we don't have the time to put on another 2-hour witness on ketamine and CRPS. And we're down to the nitty gritty here, Judge. We just have to make some tough decisions. And I'm sorry if counsel had prepped on it. They are getting paid to do this stuff, and I've got
That has nothing to do with it.
I'm
It's
just
the whole point of telling the other side at lunchtime who's going to be the next day is so they can prepare. Do you know how wrong that what you just said is? You said that you had even determined it earlier, but hadn't talked to Hannah about it. You didn't even bother to tell them. What's wrong with that?
Judge, it was so late, it wouldn't have made any difference in our view. Why call them? And
I'm going to take a break.
11:30.
I'm going to take a break. I want the two of you to talk about what people are coming. There's got to be a different way of than deciding at 11:30 at night, 10:30 at night, 9:30 at night, not telling the other side. That is just wrong. Cannot happen again. I am so tired of how you're not telling the other side information. It's just wrong. We're going to take a break.
All rise, court in recess.
corporate bylaws under 2159.
And what's the objection to the corporate bylaws?
Relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled. Court will receive 2159.
If I can backtrack, we did find the 2016.
And what exhibit number is that?
Which one they're using, then 16
It's JHACH 19,511.
Is it a identified exhibit, trial exhibit number?
I don't see one on this copy I've been handed, Your Honor.
Okay, in my Zoom feed, I have a person, I assume is a witness, Regina Schimmel.
This is Beata's sister, Your Honor, first witness for us.
Okay, Miss, is she the one that needs an interpreter?
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Do I have the interpreter here?
Yes, Your Honor. He's,
Because I need to tell the witness, I'm going to put the witness into the waiting room. So can someone come down and tell this witness what I'm doing so the witness understands?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Can we go? Can you just translate this? Good morning, Ms. Schimmel. This is Judge Carroll.
Dzień dobry, pani Chmiel, tu jest sędzia Karol.
Dzień dobry, witam wszystkich zgromadzonych.
Good morning to everyone.
Ma'am, I understand you're going to be a witness this morning.
Rozumiem, że będzie pani świadkiem dzisiaj rano.
Tak, będę świadkiem.
Yes, I will be a witness.
And there's going to be some things I need to do outside of your presence. So I'm going to put you in the waiting room for a little bit, okay?
Są rzeczy, procedury, które muszę wykonać poza pani obecnością, więc umieszczę panią w poczekalni elektronicznej, dopóki pani nie przywołamy.
Dobrze.
Yes, I
Okay,
understand.
don't go anywhere. I'll call you back in a few minutes, but you're not going to be able to see what's going on.
Proszę nigdzie nie odchodzić od miejsca, w którym pani jest. Za kilka minut sędzia panią wezwie.
Dobrze.
Yes.
Okay, I've removed that witness and put that witness into the waiting room. Thank you, Mr. Interpreter. Okay, what's, so the 2016 bylaws, or sorry, 2006 org chart isn't identified as a trial exhibit?
And now this is the only one we had. We can substitute it.
This was produced to plaintiffs 12/23/20 and 4/28/01.
Well, it's on our list, but it's not on this.
No, I see it.
We just want to make sure it has the same people.
Well, the other organization chart doesn't have the people, it's just got the organization and titles.
Just make sure it's the same. Yeah.
We're fine substituting this, Your Honor.
Okay, well, why don't we just put it as the next number in the series, hand it to the clerk, and I tell us what number in the series it is, Madam Clerk.
It's 2802.
So the court receives 28/2.
This one has a little bit highlighted on it. I don't think it matters. Does it matter to you that there's two things highlighted on there?
What's next?
Then we have the Johns Hopkins medical record access log for October 8th, 2016. This has to do with the Kathy Beatty and the access to minus medical records without authorization from the parents.
Is this only access to Maya Kowalski's file, so I don't have to worry about any other patients' HIPAA issues?
Correct.
Okay, let's go ahead and put it up, please, so I can look at it.
The access log in question, Judge, this has come up before, and we had, the issue before was authentication and explanation. The purpose that I understand this is being offered for is to demonstrate that Sally Smith accessed the medical record on or about October 8th, 2016, to which we are prepared to stipulate. This thing, if you, as you'll see when it's up in front of you, has got 9 or 10 different columns with 9 or 10 different explanations. It's not susceptible of ready interpretation without someone who knows what it says. And so we object to their just putting it in without authentication or without explanation or context of what the various columns and information tranches mean. But once again, we're prepared to stipulate that Sally Smith did in fact, pursuant to her status as a staff physician and CPI investigator, access the chart. They don't need to put this in. That's agreed to.
We would prefer to have the written document in evidence in case there is a dispute, either on appeal or otherwise, as to the scope of any stipulation and any issues that could come up during the defendant's case or rebuttal countering this. So with all due respect to counsel, we prefer to have this actually in, and we do have the codes, and they're not particularly difficult to ascertain. And on behalf of Maya Kowalski, we waive any confidentiality for these purposes.
Well, there's no authentication issue. I mean, I think the parties have agreed that this is the access log.
It is the
And
access log, Judge. The
if you
question
would-
is what the various columns mean. And what I'm concerned about is some element of surprise and quote interpretation of these things without context and without reality and challenging it.
You can call a witness to explain the meaning of this, but the reality is they are contending that Dr. Smith is the apparent agent of the hospital, and this directly is evidence of their contention, so, or potentially, arguably. Well, you can make all faces you want,
Well,
Mr. Hunter.
I understand, Your Honor, but
Let's
there's
not-
no
let's not do the
authentication.
faces,
I'm
okay?
sorry.
Not today.
There is no indication that there was any connection between her accessing this chart and her status as an apparent agent.
You can
have
argue that to the
stipulated-
jury. They don't have to take your stipulation. I mean, they don't have to take the stipulation. They didn't take it, so the court will receive 2165A as an alpha -071, that page only. What's next?
2249, JH policy, HIPAA policies for providers, authorizations. They had raised an objection. I'll let them do it, but it's relevant and material for the same reason as the item before, the exhibit before, in order to interpret 2165A-071, 2249 with the codes and the HIPAA policies would be necessary.
Well, there is no cause of action for HIPAA violation in this complaint. I just,
That was my concern, Judge. I'm not sure why they're putting in and why that's relevant to the other. I mean, it's all about HIPAA. So,
And Your Honor, to the extent there's going to be an argument that there was a HIPAA violation by accessing the chart on 10/8/16, we have a pending motion. Remember me about that? Plaintiffs never filed a supplemental brief this court requested. And I think we're at some point today, before Dr. Colquhoun, prepared to argue how this is absolutely not a HIPAA violation under Florida statutes or the Code of Federal Regulations. And even if it was, there's a Florida statute that says we're not even supposed to be talking about that in malpractice court.
well, again, there's no cause of action for a HIPAA violation, so.
Mine's only for the codes, Judge. If we compare it down to just having the codes, I want to make sure.
What do you mean by the codes?
Well,
I'm looking at the policy. What are you talking about?
it was my understanding that within this document, it set forth the rules and regulations and how to code it. But if it doesn't, then for now, we can withdraw. We need to move on anyway, Judge. So we'll withdraw for now. And then come back to it.
What's the next one?
2056 is at the top of the list. I think that was skipped. Can you put that up for us? This reflects one of Sally Smith's various roles in the hospital this time. As part of the residency program at Johns Hopkins, goes to our parent agency discussion.
Judge, no objection except for the highlighting.
Well, okay, this is not our highlighting. This is how it was discovered.
I said, objection, you said no.
Okay, I'm sorry. Excuse me, Your Honor. We do object to the relevance. And who's going to make it relevant?
Is this like a published list? And
Yes.
yeah, no.
Okay.
The court's going to overrule the relevance. I will
Okay.
receive 2056. And you don't have a version that doesn't have the highlighting on it?
No, Your Honor, that's how it was. I mean, we can try to remove it if it's necessary.
Well, Judge, highlighting can be removed pretty easily anymore on PDFs.
Well, again, it's what the clerk has. The clerk probably has it highlighted.
Substituted in then perhaps.
You tell me, everyone.
We prefer not to do actual, well, we'll do what the court requires, or if they require that highlight be removed, we'll work on that. And
That
probably-
one, I mean, out of all the things to worry about in this case, I don't think this is
I
one.
appreciate that, Judge. All right.
Your Honor,
This is the art of the possible.
Yes.
in the interest of time, we'd like to, and I think we're gonna have a lunch discussion, we'd like to move down to the second to last page of the list, exhibit 2277, which begins with the risk management file. And within that, I'd like to move, I guess I'm on the last page now, page 628 and 629.
I'm sorry, what?
All right.
Because this list isn't in chronological order, so let me just find it.
Well, it's, so 2277, and within 2277, there are several hundred pages. So if you go to the
I
third
got
to
you.
last entry, 628, 629, and this is an internal email at Johns Hopkins regarding Maya's care and treatment.
Judge, it's an internal email that refers to Attorney Hunter that talks about the dependency action.
Is this the one that I already ruled on, or is this a different email?
This is a different one. Your Honor.
It's the same issue, Judge. This is all talking about testimony at the dependency hearing. And then refers to, in the second paragraph,
Stop,
Attorney,
stop, stop.
okay. Refers in the second paragraph to Attorney Hunter.
Okay, well, let's go, in my mind, the first thing is, can I see the two in the front again? Are any of these individuals, Jackie Crane's, is she the, remind me, she's the nurse or?
She's the general counsel.
General counsel. So, the first issue is attorney-client privilege, but then there was the issue of inadvertent disclosure. But was this document included in the inadvertent disclosure?
No.
Okay. So effectively, we've got a waiver of attorney-client privilege here at this point. Is that where I'm at?
There's not express attorney-client communication here other than what I was allegedly advised of. The real objection here, Judge, is going to be with the DCF matter, because this is replete with that entire matter.
Okay. So in my mind, I've moved on beyond attorney-client privilege. Now I'm going to go to the relevance. Can you make it the text larger, please? Mr. Reyes, thank you. there's going to have to be a couple of redactions in this email.
Understood.
But the balance of it is gonna come in. What date is this again? December 30th, and where were we on the dependency court orders with respect to visitation?
I believe the most recent order before this email was a December 27th order. And
Well, there's a reference in here about exercising the right to supervise. Was that permitted under that?
under that order was the first time, it's my recollection, that the hospital was granted express permission to supervise those calls.
In the order, Judge, as opposed to DCF asking them to do it, but they are expressly allowed to supervise.
I have the
I
wording.
think the sentence that starts, Maya was not allowed to listen in, that sentence has to come out.
All right?
The following sentence, the judge didn't let Maya listen in,
Yes.
needs to come out. And is there any, is this sentence correct that mom's mother is allowed unsupervised FaceTime at 11 a.m. and 5 p.m.?
Judge, I'd have to look at the order specifically. I think they mean Maya's mother.
I have
Well, it's Beata.
Yeah.
It's a paragraph 2 of the order. Mother shall have and ACH shall permit visit by any electronic device, i.e. iPhone, Skype, FaceTime, or similar method at approximately 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. daily. Such communication may be supervised by a guardian ad litem, the child's case manager, or any member of the hospital staff, but does not have to be. I can read the balance if the court wants. There's a few other points.
Why don't we just redact where it says mom's mother through the balance of that paragraph?
So the rest of that paragraph, Your Honor, comes up?
Yes, and then the following paragraph, let's redact, but leave in, I did advise Dr. Majors to get pictures of the scratches.
Okay.
And
Sorry, Judge. The second
wait a second,
sentence.
the sentence, the third sentence of that paragraph where it says, Howard also agreed, that sentence needs to come out.
Understood.
But the talking about getting pictures of the scratches and an inquiry to how Maya got them needs to stay in.
Your Honor, in the paragraph above that begins, I just got off the phone with the case manager. The second sentence reads, everyone is over this case. Or can we keep that?
Yeah, Judge, that's referring to the DCF case. I don't,
It's referring to
and
it,
it's
but
out of perspective if the rest of it's removed.
I agree, that sentence without the context of the sentence before or after could be misleading.
Understood.
So, okay, are we clear on what needs to be redacted?
Yeah, we'll put it best then.
Okay, so we'll need to get to the clerk a printed copy of it. So ultimately, I will be admitting, and we'll call it A on that
I
one.
will also need the
So 628-629A.
testimony of Joe Corbin, but that's not
And 629.
I'm only looking at one page, so where's the second page?
The second page is just a continuation. It's nothing more than, I think, a logo.
Can we see the second page? No.
Second page thing.
No, we're gonna leave in the logo. So, yes, ultimately, it'll be received as 2277-628A and 629A. But it'll be redacted. is there anything that we have to do before we bring in the jury?
I think we can wait.
Your Honor, I did, as a threshold matter for the witness that's coming, I did want to.
Who's coming?
The next witness that's coming.
Tell me who the next witness is.
Regina.
Oh, that's right. That's
Regina,
right.
yeah, Regina. There is a tremendous amount of hearsay. I anticipate being on my feet quite a bit. Almost everything that this witness knows during the hospitalization came through hearsay conversations from essentially Beata Kowalski. So I don't know exactly what she's being proffered for, but her universe of knowledge in terms of personal non-hearsay interaction is essentially nil. I don't know where we're going with this. Just like some clarification from the opposing counsel.
Good. I don't think this is going to intrude on what Beata told her about the hospitalization. I think that's the purpose of the testimony.
The only thing I can think of is how did you learn about Beata's death, which is not exactly, it's just a name, date, and would be an exception to hearsay, I believe, under statements regarding reputation, statements regarding personal or family history. And birth, marriage, divorce, death, relationship.
Sounds like they're not going to ask about statements she was making inside the hospital. So,
Well, they told us what, she's not being proffered for. I'd like to hear a little bit about what she's being proffered for. And again, the admonition too is not just what happened in the hospitalization, but there's a lot of deposition testimony here about what Beata told the witness about what was going on.
I don't want to go through her whole testimony outside the presence of the jury and then have to redo it again on a witness that also is going to need the services of an interpreter.
All right.
So let's. Madam Clerk is asking about 2159. 2159 is in evidence, and we got the 2016 org chart, which is 2802 in evidence, so we don't need 2149. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
The clerk wanted to know about 2149, and my recollection, since we put in the 2016 org chart at 2802,
That's my understanding as well.
we don't need 2149. You're welcome, Madam Clerk. Okay, let's do this. Let me have the clerk swear the interpreter in. I will then swear the witness in outside the presence of the jury, and then I will tell the jury, like I've done with the other witnesses, that I swore the witness outside the presence. Come on down, Mr. Interpreter.
Staying here.
Debbie Coley. Oh, we don't need a chair there.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will make a true interpretation of the questions asked and the answers given, and that you will make a true translation into English of any writing which you are required by your duties to decipher the translator?
I do.
I'm going to bring in the witness. And are you fine standing there, or do you need
Yes,
to
I'm fine.
sit down? If you get tired and need to sit down, let us know, and we'll
Thank you.
make that work for you.
All right, I guess I'll stand over here. Stand next to him.
Why don't you go to that lectern, and then Mr. Anderson can go to this lectern.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm just have a better view of the monitor here. Does that matter or not for the?
Well, I tell you what, why don't you come sit on the witness stand?
Okay.
There's a monitor there, and I will. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning again, Miss. Is it Chimmel?
Dzień dobry, pani Chmiel.
Dzień dobry, witam.
Did I say that properly?
In Polish, it's pronounced Chmiel.
Camille?
Close enough.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I try to get everyone's name right.
Chmiel. Chmiel.
Camille?
Yeah. That's perfect.
Miss Camille?
I'm gonna call her Regina.
My understanding is you currently are in the Chicago area. Is that correct?
Rozumiem, że pani w tej chwili jest w obszarze blisko Chicago. Czy tak jest?
Tak, mieszkam w Chicago.
Yes, I am in Chicago area.
Under our rules, since I am a judge in the state of Florida,
Ponieważ ja jestem sędzią w stanie Floryda,
I need your permission to administer the oath before you testify.
Potrzebuję, żeby pani się zgodziła na dokonanie przysięgi, zanim pani będzie zeznawać.
What that means for you is if there was ever an enforcement action or a perjury action,
Dla pani to znaczy to, że jeżeli kiedykolwiek ktoś niósłby jakąś akcję o krzywoprzysięstwo
against you based on your testimony here today,
przeciwko pani na podstawie tego, co pani dzisiaj zeznaje,
you are agreeing to personal jurisdiction in Sarasota County, Florida,
zgadza się pani na to, żeby taka akcja sądowa, jeżeli by była taka, miała miejsce w Sarasocie, w Florydzie.
because even though you were sitting in Chicago, you were actually testifying in Sarasota County, Florida.
Dlatego, że mimo to, że pani w tej chwili siedzi w Chicago, to zeznaje pani w Sarasocie na Florydzie.
Okej, rozumiem.
I understand.
With that understanding, do you agree I can administer the oath to you?
Rozumiejąc to, co powiedziałem, czy zgadza się pani na przysięgę?
Tak,
I do.
Please raise your right hand.
Proszę podnieść prawą rękę.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give is the truth?
Czy pani przysięga, że wszystko to, co pani powie w zeznaniach, jest prawdą?
tak.
Jest.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dziękuję pani.
Let's bring in the jury.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, did I miss it? I don't remember you swearing in the interpreter. Oh, you did do
The
it?
clerk swore the
Oh,
interpreter.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
Okay, let's bring in the jury.
Wprowadzeni będą ławnicy.
All right, jurors entering.
Okay, everyone, please be seated.
Wszyscy siadają.
Okay. Members of the jury, I want to confirm while you're away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves. You did no investigation and you received no information. Is that correct? And have you been approached by anyone about this case since you were with us last?
No.
And have you reviewed any media coverage of this case since we were last here?
Sędzia sprawdza, czy ławnicy z nikim nie rozmawiali.
And y'all doing okay this morning? I asked a different question. Are y'all doing okay this morning? Trying to keep you on your toes. Okay. Members of the jury, our next witness is testifying from the Chicago area
Nasz następny świadek zeznaje z Chicago.
And needs the services of a Polish interpreter.
Potrzebuje usług tłumacza polskiego.
Outside of your presence, I have sworn in both the interpreter and the witness.
Poza waszą obecnością przysięgi dokonał i tłumacz, i świadek.
So the witness will be testifying under oath just like every other witness has.
Świadek będzie zeznawał pod przysięgą, tak jak każdy inny świadek w sprawie.
Mr. Anderson, you may inquire.
Panie Anderson, może pan zadawać pytania.
I hope you do not mind if I just call you Regina.
Mam nadzieję, że nie będzie pani miała nic przeciwko temu, jeżeli będę się do pani zwracał jako Regina.
Dobrze, miło mi.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
You're Beata Kowalski's sister.
Czy pani jest siostrą Beaty Kowalskiej?
Tak, jestem.
Yes, I am.
Where do you live?
Gdzie pani mieszka?
Mieszkam w Chicago.
I live in Chicago.
How long have you lived there?
Jak długo pani tam mieszka?
21 lat.
21 years.
And where did you live before that?
Gdzie pani mieszka uprzednio?
Mieszkałam w Polsce.
I lived in Poland.
And when you moved, was Poland still under communist rule?
Kiedy
Had it been freed?
Kiedy pani przeprowadziła się do Stanów Zjednoczonych, czy Polska jeszcze dalej była pod władzą komunistyczną, czy już została wyzwolona?
Już została wyzwolona.
It had been freed.
For how long?
Jak długo?
Miałam 28 lat, jak w Polsce został obalony komunizm.
I was 28 years old when communism was toppled in Poland.
And how old would have Beata been then?
Ile lat miała wtedy Beata?
Jak został obalony komunizm w Polsce, moja siostra miała 16 lat.
When communism was toppled in Poland, my sister was 16 years old.
So both you and your sister lived into your teens under communist rule?
Więc zarówno pani, jak i pani siostra, będąc nastolatkami, żyły pod władzą komunistyczną.
Tak.
Yes.
And did that shape Beata's view of life from what you saw?
Czy to przeżycie w jakiś sposób ukształtowało poglądy Beaty na życie z tego, co pani mogła zobaczyć?
Tak.
Yes.
Nasi rodzice mówili nam, że trzeba walczyć o ważne sprawy. Nasz tata w czasie komunizmu należał do Związku Zawodowego Solidarność 1980.
Our parents told us that we should fight for things that are important to us. Our father belonged to the Solidarity Union movement.
Nasz tata był jednym z liderów tego ruchu, który walczył o prawa ludzi i walczył z komunizmem.
Our father was one of the leaders of the movement that fought for human rights and fought against communist rule.
Ma'am, are you reading off of something? This is Judge Carroll.
Sędzia pyta, czy pani czyta z notatek.
Mam notatki i patrzę, żebym po prostu powiedziała dobrze. Mogę korzystać z notatek moich?
I made some notes. I just want to make sure that I'm saying what I'm saying correctly. Am I allowed to use these notes?
Well, let's turn over your notes and not use them. If you need to use them, let us know beforehand, okay?
Sędzia prosi, żeby pani odwróciła notatki do góry nogami, nie używała ich. Jeżeli pani będzie je potrzebowała, proszę o tym powiadomić sędziego. Yes, Your Honor.
Not to get into too much of a history lesson, but was the solidarity movement under Lech Walesa the beginning of the fall of communism in
Nie
Eastern
chcemy
Europe?
tutaj wchodzić w lekcję historii, ale chciałem pani zadać pytanie, czy ruch Solidarności pod kierownictwem Wałęsy był jedną z przyczyn upadku komunizmu.
Interpreter, hold on a second.
I'm gonna check for the relevance of this last.
Sustain.
So,
Tell her not to answer that question.
Ma pani nie odpowiadać, dlatego że adwokat strony drugiej wniósł sprzeciw, sędzia ten sprzeciw uwzględnił, że to nie jest istotne.
from the way that you and your sister were raised, do you believe that there was an inherent distrust of government from being under communist rule?
Czy z tego, tak jak pani siostra były wychowane przez rodziców, czy zgodziłaby się pani z tym, że był jakby zakodowany brak zaufania wobec instytucji rządowych?
Nie wiem, na ile moja siostra pamiętała, ale myślę, że miało to duży wpływ na nią, ponieważ nasz tata został internowany i osądzony w więzieniu jako więzień polityczny i nie było go pół roku.
I don't know exactly how much of this affected my sister, but I assume, I would think it had affected her because our father had been imprisoned by the government authorities for a period of 6 months.
Nasz tato został internowany w grudniu, 13 grudnia 1981 roku na oczach swoich małych dzieci.
Our father was interned on December 13th, 1981. He was arrested, taken in while his small children were watching this happen.
Tato został zabrany z domu i nie wiedzieliśmy, gdzie on przebywa.
Our father was taken from his house, and we didn't know where he was being taken to.
Did
To
this,
na, pe-
go ahead.
tak.
She can
to, na
continue.
Proszę
pewno
bardzo.
to na pewno było wielkie przeżycie dla niej, dla 8-letniego dziecka. Jeszcze do tego naszej mamy nie było, bo kilka miesięcy wcześniej pojechała do Stanów Zjednoczonych.
It was a
Nasz
very
córka-
it was a very impactful experience for an 8-year-old. My sister was 8 years old.
Finish out the.
Additionally, so because our mother had not been at home, she was in the United States at the time.
Okay, ma'am, we need to wait for the next question before we say anything else.
Musimy czekać na następne pytanie, pani musi czekać na następne pytanie, zanim pani będzie kontynuować od pytania do pytania.
Your Honor, I'd just like to state my objection on the basis of relevance, non-responsive to the question asked.
Adwokat chciał wnieść sprzeciw, mówiąc, że na bazie istotności.
I'm going to overrule, but ma'am, you just need to wait for the next question before you say
Sędzia
anything.
nie zaakceptował sprzeciwu, ale musi pani czekać na następne pytanie, a odpowiadać tylko na pytanie, które jest zadane.
Were you and your sister taught to assert yourselves in order to get something done with a bureaucracy?
Czy panią i pani siostrę uczono tego, żeby być asertywnym, żeby być pewnym siebie w konfrontacji z biurokracją, żeby po prostu domagać się swego?
Overruled, she can answer.
Może pani odpowiedzieć.
Myślę, że tak. Rodzice nam wpajali to zawsze, że trzeba walczyć o swoje i stawiali nasi rodzice na edukację nas. Chcieli, żebyśmy
I
byli
believe
tacy.
so. Our parents always taught us to stick up for ourselves and to educate ourselves as best we could.
So, was the Roman Catholic religion important in your family?
Czy wiara rzymskokatolicka, religia była ważna w rodzinie pani?
Tak, była bardzo ważna i jest.
Yes, it was and still is very important.
How often did you get to see your sister once she moved to the United States?
Jak często widywała pani siostrę od czasu, kiedy ona przeprowadziła się do Stanów Zjednoczonych?
Kiedy ja przyjechałam ze swoją rodziną do Stanów Zjednoczonych, Beata wyszła za mąż i założyła swoją rodzinę i spotykaliśmy się bardzo często.
After I had moved to the United States, Beata had married. She had her own family, and we met very frequently.
Is that how you pronounce Beata's name in Polish?
Czy tak się wymawia imię Beaty po polsku?
Beata, a w domu mówiliśmy na nią Benia.
The Polish pronunciation is Beata. At home, she was called Benia.
So, did you have the opportunity to observe Beata's interaction with her children, with Kyle and Maya?
Czy miała pani okazję obserwować interakcję między Beatą a jej dziećmi?
Tak, Beata, jak mieszkała na przedmieściach Chicago w Elmhurst, tutaj urodziły się jej dzieci. Spotykałyśmy się bardzo często na urodzinach swoich dzieci, na świętach, pomagałyśmy sobie nawzajem. Była bardzo dobrą matką.
Przepraszam. When she was married and had children, we would meet very often. We would meet for family holidays and on other occasions. She was a very good mother. We met quite frequently.
And when you spoke, did you speak Polish?
Kiedy spotykałyście się, czy mówiłyście po polsku?
Tak, mówiliśmy po polsku. Jej dzieci chodziły do polskiej szkoły raz w tygodniu, by uczyć się języka polskiego i Beatka mówiła zawsze do nich po polsku.
Yes, we spoke Polish. The children went to Saturday school to learn Polish, and Beata always spoke to them in Polish.
At the time Beata passed, how well were the children doing in communicating with the rest of the family in Polish?
Wtedy, kiedy odeszła Beata, na ile z powodzeniem mogły się komunikować dzieci z resztą rodziny po polsku.
Kiedy po tragicznej śmierci mojej siostry kontakt z jej dziećmi był bardzo znikomy.
After the tragic death of my sister, the contact that we had with her children was very sporadic.
Before that, were they coming along in the Polish language so that you could communicate easily directly with them?
Pytanie jest, czy przed śmiercią Beaty, na ile dobry był ich polski, czy mogła pani się z nimi swobodnie porozumiewać w języku polskim?
Tak, mogłam się porozumiewać, spotykałyśmy się, przytulaliśmy się nawzajem. Dzieci bardzo mnie lubiały, naszą mamę, babcię.
I could freely communicate with them in Polish. We hugged. We had a very good time. They were very close to me and their grandmother.
And when was the last time you spoke with either Kyle or Maya?
Kiedy to było ostatnim razem, kiedy pani rozmawiała albo z Kyle, albo z Mają?
Z Mają i z Kajem wysyłamy sobie text message, bo najlepiej nam się w ten sposób porozumiewać. Nie dzwonimy do siebie, tylko SMS-ujemy.
Yes, Your Honor.
Is one of the two techs running this through the system so the jury can see? Okay.
Pytanie jest, czy jurorzy widzą pani obraz. Teraz się pani obraz pojawił.
Catch.
O, zniknęłam.
Sorry about that.
My God.
Should I interpret the question?
I can't even remember the question.
The question was whether Ms. Khmiel had when was the last time she had communicated with the children?
That was the question, please.
Kiedy pani, jeszcze raz jakby pani odpowiedziała na to pytanie, kiedy pani ostatni raz miała kontakt z dziećmi?
Z dziećmi mojej siostry kontaktujemy się codziennie przez SMS-y. Nie dzwonimy do siebie, dlatego że one nie mówią już po polsku, a ja tylko troszkę mówię po angielsku.
Przepraszam. I contact the children regularly. We communicate through text messages. We contact each other every day. Text messages are a better mode of communication because the children no longer speak English well, and I don't speak. No longer speak Polish well, and I don't speak English well enough to have a fluid conversation.
So without Beata, has it become more difficult for the children to communicate with your side of the family?
Czy bez Beaty jest w tej chwili trudniej dzieciom komunikować się z pani stroną rodziny?
Tak, teraz jest bardzo trudno, dlatego że Beata, moja siostra, była łącznikiem między nami. Ona mówiła w dwóch językach.
May I ask the witness just to,
Yes,
no more than 2 sentences. Proszę panią nie więcej niż 2 zdania, tak jak się umawialiśmy, bo mnie potem jest trudno wszystko przetłumaczyć. Yes, the exchange has become much more difficult right now because Beata was the intermediary who was bringing us together, so it is more difficult now.
Did you have an opportunity to observe your sister's interaction with Maya and Kyle on those occasions you were together?
Czy miała pani okazję obserwować Beatę w relacjach z jej dziećmi, z Kyle i z Mają w tych momentach, kiedy byłyście razem?
Tak.
Yes, I did.
Describe for the jury, from your position as an aunt, how Maya interacted with her children. What kind of mother was she?
Jeżeli pani mogłaby opisać ze swojej pozycji jako ciocia, jak Beata, jaka była interakcja między Beatą i jej dziećmi, jakiego rodzaju była mamą?
Jak Kajo, drugie dziecko, Beata urodziła, jak pamiętam,
When
zaraz...
Beata gave birth to the second child, Kaya, I remember.
jej dziecko miało problemy z krwią jako noworodek,
The child had problems with blood as a toddler,
i Kajo został zabrany do innego szpitala po porodzie,
and Kaya was taken to another hospital immediately after birth.
to ona wypisała się ze szpitala położniczego i pojechała za nim.
Beata had signed herself out of the OB hospital she was with, and she went with the child.
Chory Majo miał, co pamiętam, 8 razy przetaczaną krew od swojej mamy i ratowała jego życie.
When Kyle was ill, he had 8 blood transfusions. Transfusions that were the source of the blood was the mother's blood, and that saved his life.
Z tego, co pamiętam, Beata, moja siostra, była bardzo dobrą matką. Pamiętam, jak założyła dla niego taką książeczkę.
From what I remember, Beata was a very good mother. I remember where she instituted a booklet for him.
Taki pamiętnik, jak była w ciąży, prowadziła pamiętnik dla małego Kaja.
It was a diary that she had written while she was pregnant for her child to read in the future.
I jak pewnego razu byłam u niej na wizycie i oglądałam tą książeczkę, jak ona dokładnie pisała, co czuła, jak go nosiła pod swoim sercem.
One of the times when I was there, I had a chance to look at the booklet and read it, and she was very precise in recounting how she felt when she carried him under her heart during her pregnancy.
Pisała praktycznie każdego dnia w tym pamiętniku do Kaja. Pisała go swoją ręką i swoim sercem.
She wrote practically every day. She wrote with her heart and with her hand.
Natomiast Maja, jej córeczka, bardzo ją kochała.
She loved her daughter Maya very, very much.
Maja, gdy była tutaj zdrowa w Ermkus, razem z rodzicami jeździła na łyżwach. Byliśmy na takim pokazie na tych łyżwach.
When Maya was healthy, she would go with her parents to go ice skating. We went to see ice skating shows.
Słuchaliśmy jej nagrań, ponieważ Maja pięknie grała na pianinie.
And Maya played the piano very, very well, wonderfully. So we would listen to recordings of her playing the piano.
Kiedy Maja z rodziną przeprowadziła się na Florydę do Venice,
When Maya with her family had moved to Florida, to Venice,
i wkrótce, myślę, że tak 2 lata,
and within, I think, was 2 years,
Maja zachorowała
Maya became sick.
I Beata informowała nas i opowiadała o wszystkim, o jej zmaganiach z tą chorobą.
Beata informed us about all the details. She told us about all of Maya's struggles in fighting the ailment.
Ma'am, you need to wait for the next question.
Proszę poczekać na następne pytanie.
From what you saw, understanding most parents hopefully have a strong parental instinct. Did Beata have a particularly strong parental protective instinct towards her children
Z tego, co pani
because of
widziała,
what she'd been through?
I'm going to check the foundation.
Going to overrule that. You can translate.
Mogę przetłumaczyć, sędzia pozwolił. Pytanie było takie, że zakładając, że większość rodziców ma instynkt opiekuńczy wobec swoich dzieci, czy powiedziałaby pani, że Beata miała wyjątkowo silny instynkt opiekuńczy wobec swoich dzieci?
Beata była zwykłą mamą, tak jak wszystkie dobre mamy.
Beata was a normal mother, just like any other good mother.
Is there-
I'm not sure that the witness understood your
Right.
question.
Can you translate the parental instinct to protect her children? And I'm trying to ask, was Beata's more than
Stop.
normal?
Just ask a normal question, and he'll translate.
I'll try it.
I will object to the extent this is calling for character evidence.
You'll need to translate our discussion. Just
Right.
ask your next question.
Right. Did Beata have a strong instinct to protect Kyle and Maya from what you saw?
Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection. Let's go to the next question.
W tej chwili podtrzymał obiekcję sędzia, więc przechodzimy do następnego pytania.
So since Beata's death, how much less you've testified you see them less, how much less are you able to see Kyle and Maya and they you?
Od czasu śmierci Beaty, na ile mniej jest pani w stanie widywać się z dziećmi, na ile mniej one są w stanie widywać się z panią?
Po śmierci Beaty widziałam dzieci 2 razy.
After Beata's death, I had seen the children on 2 occasions.
Razem z moją rodziną, z moją mamą, która je wychowywała. Mama moja do tej pory bardzo rozpacza, że nie widzi swoich wnuków, którymi się opiekowała.
When I had seen them, I was in the company of my mother, their grandmother, who raised them, who also raised them, and she is despondent about the fact that she can't see them more.
Brings up a good point. Now, who is in the United States from your side of the family that the children would be able to interact with?
Kto jest w tej chwili od pani strony rodziny w Stanach Zjednoczonych, tak żeby dzieci mogły mieć jakby interakcję, widzieć się z tymi osobami, które są w Stanach Zjednoczonych?
My tu mieszkamy wszyscy. Jest moja druga siostra Elżbieta, jest mój brat Piotr.
Momencik. We all live here. There's my sister Elżbieta, my brother Piotr. Proszę.
Jest siostrzenica Klaudia
There's my niece Claudia
i moje dzieci, a mam ich 5.
and my children, and I have 5 children.
Wszyscy czekamy na wizyty Mai i Kaja.
We all eagerly await Maya's and Kyle's visits.
Any cousins around their age?
Czy
Maya and Kyle's?
Czy są kuzyni mniej więcej w ich wieku? Maja i Kyla.
Są, moje dzieci są dużo starsi. Mój syn jest ojcem chrzestnym Kaja.
My children are quite a bit older. My son is Kyle's godfather.
And so now has that contact with your side of the family been reduced now that it's been a few years since Beata's passing?
Pytanie jest, czy od śmierci Beaty ten kontakt został zmniejszony?
Bardzo został zmniejszony.
It has been reduced to a great degree.
Po śmierci Beaty rodzina się rozsypała. Wszyscy po prostu nie mogą sobie z tym poradzić.
After Beata's death, the family fell apart. We can't cope with the situation.
Is there any doubt in your mind that Beata would give her life for her children?
Czy ma pani jakiekolwiek wątpliwości, że Beata oddałaby swoje życie za dzieci?
Objection, relevance, foundation,
Establish the foundation.
calls for character evidence as well.
Sustained.
Nie mogę tego, znaczy sędzia nie pozwala na odpowiedzi na to pytanie.
And do you hope for more communication with Maya and Kyle in the future?
Czy ma pani nadzieję na to, że będzie pani miała więcej kontaktu z Kyle i z Mają w przyszłości?
Mam nadzieję, że się będziemy spotykać.
I am hopeful that we will be able to meet. Proszę dalej.
Może już wkrótce przyjadą do nas na wesele.
Hopefully, maybe they will come to visit us soon for the wedding.
Your witness. Thank you, Regina.
Dziękuję.
Mr. Hughes, your turn.
Teraz będzie adwokat obrony zadawał pani pytania.
May it please the court. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you for coming in. I'm sorry for your loss.
Dzień dobry pani, dziękuję za to, że się pani pojawiła. Jest mi przykro z powodu straty, jaką pani doznała.
Does Mr. Kowalski, Jack Kowalski, make arrangements for you and the family here in Florida to get together?
Czy pan Kowalski, Jack Kowalski aranżuje takie możliwości, żeby pani rodzina mogła się spotkać z dziećmi?
Trudno mi powiedzieć, dlatego że to Beata była tym łącznikiem, jak żyła.
It is difficult for me to say because Beata was the instigator of family gatherings.
My mieszkamy w Chicago, oni mieszkają w Venice.
We live in Chicago, they live in Venice.
My mówimy w języku polskim, troszkę po angielsku tylko.
We speak Polish, just a little bit of English.
Jacek mówi tylko po angielsku, nie mówi po polsku.
Jacek speaks only English, he does not speak Polish.
When was the last time that Mr. Kowalski made attempts to meet with the side of the family that's in Chicago?
Kiedy ostatnim razem pan Kowalski próbował się spotkać z rodziną, która mieszka w Chicago?
Jacek z dziećmi po śmierci Beaty był tutaj 2 razy z wizytą.
After Beata's death, Jacek and the children were here in Chicago twice.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, ma'am.
Nie mam więcej pytań, dziękuję.
Mr. Anderson, any more questions?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Pan Anderson też nie ma więcej pytań.
Hold on a second, ma'am. The jury might have questions.
Jeszcze pani poczeka, bo być może ławnicy będą mieli pytania.
Members of the jury, anyone have questions?
Ławnicy nie mają pytań.
Okay, seeing no questions, may this witness be excused at this time.
Yes, on behalf of plaintiffs.
Ponieważ nie ma więcej pytań, czy możemy podziękować świadkowi?
Thank you for being with us, ma'am. You're free to go.
Dziękuję za to, że pani była z nami. Może pani już skończyć swoje zeznanie. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You can step
Thank you,
down.
Your Honor.
And your next witness.
Laura Vose by deposition.
Judge, can we approach briefly?
Sure. And this one's on video as well? This deposition's on video?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, Your Honor, I do ask, I'm sorry, can we tell the jury the dates the depositions are taken? Because it's not, can we
It's on the
approach?
bottom of the screen, but
Okay.
I think he's gonna.
Sure, the answer is yes. See if I can do the lights again. Is that too much light over there? Tell me. I'll keep adjusting it. That's not the right one.
And we get a light show.
Like I said, there's like 9 switches here. Or not switches, buttons. Okay, let's play the next deposition, please. Natalie, do you know how to do the lights? No. All right.
Judge, should we do an instruction, or this may be our first, is this our first demo?
no.
Oh, sorry.
I'll just tell you the instruction anyway. As a reminder, depositions were done under oath prior to you coming here. You're to treat them just like all the other evidence in this case. There you go.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Please state your name for the record,
Laura Ann Vos,
and is that an MD?
D.O.,
And what the DO stands for again?
Doctor of Osteopathy?
And at your present hospital, are you on any committees?
Yes.
What committees?
I am on the Ethics Committee. I am on a Pediatric Surgical Performance Improvement Committee.
Okay. Dr. Vos, we are, as I said, in follow-up to your last deposition, I think your only deposition in this case, which was taken Thursday, November 14th at 2019. Do you remember giving that deposition?
Yes.
And have you had the opportunity to read that deposition in the interim?
Yes.
Right. Did you mark out any changes or corrections on an errata sheet?
Howard, I would like to defer to Howard whether or not I had filled out one form regarding my cell phone.
All right. So that's a maybe?
Yes.
And during the course of that deposition, I advised you that if at any time you did not understand my question or you're having difficulty answering it, I ask that you tell me out loud on the record so I can change it to make it easier to answer. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And we agreed that in the event that you did not say anything, we all, judge, jury, all of us could understand you understood the question and are answering it to the best of your abilities. Right?
Yes.
Okay. From 2017 to 2020, basically the time after Maya finally left Johns Hopkins, to the time you left Johns Hopkins, did your position change at all?
No.
Did you continue to work on certain committees?
Yes.
And what were those committees?
Not having the list in front of me.
Best you can do.
their ethics committee. There was a PICU committee. There, I would have to actually pull up my CV to be able to tell you all of the committees that I was on at that time.
Okay. Well, the reason I was asking you is that you said in the first text, I think we're going to talk about, you've been busy with an ethics consult. So I take it that as of the time that Beata Kowalski committed suicide, you were on that ethics committee?
Yes.
The cell phone that we're talking about here, I wanted to read just the last 4 digits. I didn't want to put the whole thing in the record. That's the one that is 9979.
That's not my personal cell phone.
Okay.
I don't
You think
remember.
then that was the hospitals?
Possibly.
That's the one that appears next to your, I take to be your statements here in the text. All right. And what number did you send the texts from? And just for clarification, it is the text that began to be discussed today, learned today that Ketamine Girl's mom committed suicide yesterday. And all I'm trying to establish is whose phone was that, yours or the hospital's?
That one was mine.
So one of the statements in this is I've been busy with an ethics consult, so I haven't done anything about order sets yet. I wanted to find out more about the ethics committee. Was this something where you had calls to, I guess, intervene or to analyze ethical issues?
Yes.
And so what did you do? Not particularly for this one, but in general, when you got a call?
We would take in the information from whoever requested a consult, review the record, talk to all of the parties involved. Then we would convene a subgroup of the committee to have people come and present and to review the records, and involved parties were then excused, and the committee then would discuss recommendations. And then
And who else? If there was an outcome, if there was a decision, a recommendation, who did you make a recommendation to?
we would write a formal consult and put it in the chart.
What human being within the hospital, if you had to report to management, who would you report to?
We would fall under the medical executive committee. We also had administrative management that we reported to as well. So for example, Joe Perno would have been aware of the ethics committee activities.
What was the test to determine whether the ethics committee should consider a case?
We would get the request. We would determine whether or not there was an ethical issue at question. Sometimes it would be more of a legal issue than a ethical issue, or a communication issue. So we would try to address.
Sorry, go ahead.
We would try to address what the specific ethical question was.
To make the cut, so to speak, for committee review, was there any guidelines? Were there any guidelines for you? In other words, I'm assuming you didn't take up matters involving just a disagreement among nurses or social workers or anything like that. Would it be something that would involve a doctor as a requirement?
It would not necessarily have to involve a doctor. It could be anyone was allowed to place a consult or request something to be reviewed. So it could be inter-service related or patient-physician related.
All right. After the time that you learned that Beata Kowalski had committed suicide, was there an ethics committee convened to review what happened?
No,
Why not?
there was no request for one, and we also usually did consults during current hospitalizations if a case involved a patient.
All right, so the committee itself never took it upon itself to bring up a matter. It had to have a complainant.
We did not bring up this case.
Let me try this. How could you decide if something was ethical or unethical if the ethics committee never took it up?
Again, there was no request. If there had been a request to look at it, then it would have been looked at. If a concern had been raised internally or an external person had asked for something to be reviewed.
So the answer is, in that situation, no one would be reviewing the issue. True?
It would be reviewed if someone had requested a review.
Okay. What about in the 3 months of Maya's hospitalization preceding the suicide? Did anyone bring up any ethical issues about her care?
There were no requests for the ethics committee to evaluate the case.
Was there ever any investigation at all of what happened to Maya Kowalski by the ethics committee?
No.
And after Maya's mother committed suicide, was there any investigation into the ethics of how she was treated?
No.
Would you agree with me that using the term ketamine girl is a bit dehumanizing?
It basically sort of is a euphemism to not use her name in a text.
Okay, well, you're not answering my question. In retrospect, wouldn't you say that the term ketamine girl is a bit dehumanizing?
I probably could have used a better choice, but I was trying not to use her name. I'm not aware of that. No.
Can you say, as you sit here today, that you didn't refer to her as Maya in different conversations to other doctors? On the phone, that is.
I'm not aware one way or the other with 100% certainty.
How many ketamine girls were there at All Children's at this time?
Well, I had used that as a euphemism because it was unique, kind of given her history, and
did you ever refer to her as ketamine girl to her name, to her face?
No.
To her mother?
No.
To her father?
No.
So how is ketamine girl not an identifier if MK is the only girl being kept there because of ketamine?
I see it more as an identifier for people that would be familiar with her case, but not something from somebody outside to be able to connect
All right.
specifically to a person.
You're sure that none of the nurses or social workers or other doctors also referred to her as Ketamine Girl from time to time?
I have no idea.
All right. You said, sorry to say my prediction was correct. You were predicting you were predicting Beata's suicide, were you not?
Prediction probably was not a good word, but more related on my previous experience of a case during residency. So it may have been more of a speculation than a prediction.
You have a doctorate level education, do you not?
Yes.
All right. So when you say words, you choose what words are appropriate, do you not?
I like to think that I do, but in a text, sometimes you don't think and edit and re-edit. And as a human, you sometimes use words that probably would not be the best words to use.
Okay. So tell us when you say my prediction, please define my prediction, what it was.
I had a previous experience during residency where there was a child who the court had determined was Munchausen's by proxy, and that mother had committed suicide. So it was based on a previous experience.
And where did that happen?
That happened at All Children's.
And when?
I believe it was in my internship year, which would have been 1994 to 1995.
And tell me what the facts were, without mentioning names, obviously, that you believe caused that mother to commit suicide.
I don't have the details. I know as a resident, I believe I might have seen that child one time in the emergency room, and then there was an investigation and she had committed suicide, and that's basically all of the details that I know of that case.
Who were you predicting this to? Who was the recipient of this prediction?
Some of it was my own thoughts, and I believe they had maybe a passing conversation after caring for Maya with a coworker just saying that I had a previous experience, and that's what had happened.
So by the time Beata committed suicide, you had already gone through one with a mother committing suicide, right?
I knew of one, yes.
Mm-hmm. And you knew the signs of someone who was about to commit suicide from that experience, did you not?
I didn't have any involvement with that patient or family during that period of the investigation and afterwards. I had seen her.
And yet it came immediately to mind when you heard that Beata had taken her own life, did it not?
It came to mind.
All right. And then there is a response, or is this you? I know we did the right thing, but this is really effed up. I feel bad. Is that you, or is that Dr. Tepa Sanchez?
That's Dr. Tepa.
And did you share her concerns that this was effed up?
I shared my concern that I felt bad about the situation.
All right. So you felt bad. And then you expressed this by saying, don't know all the details, but I think the courts and the psychiatrists finally called it what it was. I had another mother do the same thing. We definitely did the right thing for the child. All right, taking this last sentence, we definitely did the right thing for the child. The right thing being what?
That I believe that as a group and an organization that we advocated for Maya, raised concerns, and allowed the process to continue for the appropriate people to look into what was going on in the hopes of having a good medical outcome for Maya.
You do know that Maya did not have a good medical outcome for more than 3 years and still suffers from pain, do you not?
I'm not involved with her care, so I don't know directly what's been going on with Maya.
Did you ever check on Maya to determine whether this statement was correct? We definitely did the right thing for the child.
What do you mean by check on?
Call her, follow up in any way.
No, I
Talk to
did not.
her. We talked to Dr. Wassenauer, her pediatrician.
No, I had no follow-up contact with Maya.
Did you ever call Dr. Wassenauer to ask him what his feelings were?
No.
And then it says, OMG, that means, oh my God.
Yes.
And then, well, I really hope she has a chance of a better life now. Is that you or is that Dr. Tepa Sanchez?
That's Dr. Tepa.
And did you believe that Maya was better off without her mother?
I think it's sad when any child loses a parent. However, if the investigation was proceeding and found that that was leading to harm for Maya, and that Maya, perhaps Maya now would have a better opportunity to have some other therapies and not be under the high doses of drugs, to be able to succeed at school, to be able to do well.
So you actually believed that Beata Kowalski was doing something harmful to her daughter?
I think that the process of evaluation was underway, and that is that we allowed the system to work, and the people that were appropriate to make those investigations and determinations were involved.
All right. And then it says, well, I really hope she has a better life now. That's, again, Dr. Tepa Sanchez.
Yes.
Do you have any remorse to this day, evidenced by anything in these text messages?
I feel sad about the whole situation, and I feel sad that she chose to take her life. But I'm hopeful that Maya now has been able to be more active and participate in her life and do more things.
Okay. And you saw her toes, feet turned inward towards each other? The dystonia?
I don't recall if I ever examined her feet on night call.
You never saw her feet. Okay. When you saw Maya, though, she was perfectly civil and nice to you, was she not?
She was, she didn't really talk much to me that I recall. She was on her phone the first time I saw her. She was playing on her phone. She did not personally swear at me.
You saw her 10 times, and each time that you saw her, she acted like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old girl, did she not?
Some of the times she was sleeping.
Well, I think 10 and 11-year-old girls sleep occasionally.
Correct.
So, but the point being, your medical records do not reveal any denial of her being in pain. So when you say, let's me see what she does with pain tonight before doing CT, you realized that there was, I don't want to call it a threat, but a possibility that that performing a CT could cause her some discomfort, aggravate the pain, in other words. True?
Yes, there was a potential for that.
So you were the chairman of the ethics committee at this time in 2017, were you not?
Yes.
Still to this day, there has been no retrospective on what happened.
Up to the point that I was at All Children's, there's not been an investigation. I cannot testify to what has happened since I left.
Does that complete the plan of the deposition?
Yes, sir.
Okay, members of the jury, I think this is a good time for a morning break. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information. All rise. Any issues we need, or the jury's out of our presence, any issues we need to address before we take a break?
None.
Do we have the time breakdown on that deposition?
That was all the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Okay, so can you tell me how long it specifically was?
Yes, Your Honor. It's 23 minutes and 21 seconds.
Okay. Thank you all. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. Are there any issues we need to? How long is this next deposition?
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Just as a reminder, at 11:25,
It's 20 to 25 minutes.
It's
again.
22 minutes and 49 seconds.
and who is this all for the plaintiffs? Or is there a
That's
split on
the
this one?
totality.
I don't recall any defense questions in this one. I think it's all plaintiffs.
It was 22 and something?
22 minutes and 49 seconds.
And who is this?
Dr. Joseph Furno.
Are we ready to bring the jury in?
I believe so.
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's bring in the jury, and you're the new lighting director. Good luck. I'm sorry? Okay, please be seated, everyone. Members of the jury, I want to confirm while you're away, you did not discuss this case amongst yourselves, you did no investigation and received no information. Is that all correct? Correct. And has anyone approached you about this case since you were last with us? And have you seen any media coverage in the last 20 minutes? Okay. Plaintiff, let's call your next witness.
Dr. Joseph Furno by deposition.
We're going to try to do the lights again.
Doctor, if you'll please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Morning, doctor. Please
Morning.
state your name for the record.
Joseph Perno, Perno.
And you are a medical doctor?
Correct.
And where do you work?
Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital,
And when did you start there?
2003.
Prior to the acquisition of All Children's Hospital by Johns Hopkins?
Correct.
And that occurred in?
2010 or 11.
All right. Is it true that you never actually sat on the risk management committee?
I don't recall attending in 2016 or 2017.
So you weren't there, at least as far as you can remember.
As far as I could remember, I was named a member of the committee as chief of staff, but as chief of staff as a volunteer position, I was still working a full clinical load and couldn't attend every meeting I was invited to.
So as chief of staff, how did you keep up with what was going on there?
Well, as chief of staff, you get invited to every single meeting in the hospital. You pick and choose the ones that are important for the role of the medical staff to attend, and I don't recall ever attending the risk management committee.
But since you were chief of staff, you had, I am assuming, because you're here, some control or management of the risk management committee?
No, I had no role other than to attend and listen to what's going on.
Well, how was that information then communicated to you of what happened or what was going to happen?
Is there anything the medical staff need to know about? I'm the liaison to the medical staff. They would communicate with me if there's something that was significant for the medical staff to know.
Well, I understand that, but how about agendas and decisions and topics and referrals up and that type of information? How were you kept abreast of that?
Again, I would only be notified if there was something pertinent that came out of a meeting that they needed addressed with the medical staff. If not, it would
And how would they do that?
probably in a one-on-one meeting. I don't recall anything coming up, but that would be the typical way. Either the VPMA or the president of the hospital would update me.
So let me get this straight. Did you ever see any agendas for the risk management meetings? Any of them?
Not that I recall. If I was on the committee, they were probably sent to me, but I don't recall ever seeing them.
Do you recall ever seeing any one of them, an agenda for a risk management meeting?
Not during that time.
Do you recall receiving any, did you receive any notes, memoranda, or any other documentation, electronic or in writing, of what went on in a particular meeting?
Okay, I honestly do not recall.
During the time that this stay of Maya Kowalski was going on, October 7th through approximately the 14th of January, 2017, were you aware of what was going on with her?
I was, and I think we discussed at a previous deposition, I became aware when there was a question about bringing in an outside physician to the organization.
And was that the only decision that you were involved in insofar as Maya's care?
Correct.
So insofar as being able to answer questions of what went on, what was reviewed, what decisions were made, what recommendations were made at a risk management meeting, you wouldn't know.
Correct.
All right. So tell me what you knew or understood about Maya Kowalski's care and the situation.
At the time, from what I recall, is they wanted to bring in her personal physician who did not have privileges. And the question was should and how we would give temporary emergency privileges on a case-by-case basis. And as chief of staff, I have a role in that decision-making in conjunction with typically the VPMA of the hospital.
All right. So there is a method to bring in doctors who don't have privileges on an emergency basis. Is that right?
Correct.
What are the criteria?
So they need to be able to, they need to be filling a gap that we do not have on the medical staff. So there needs to be a need for them. They need to meet the qualifications of our medical staff to treat the patient. They need to be, for emergency privileges, really they're self-limited to a particular case or time period. I don't have it all in front of me, but it's pretty spelled out by Joint Commission, but those are the main crux of it.
All right, I see two then. They need to fill a gap in an area of medicine that the hospital does not have an expertise in.
Correct?
And then the second one is they have to have qualifications of medical staff. Translate that for me.
Right, they need to be able to be credentialed on our medical staff, meaning they have to meet certain basic things that our medical staff bylaws state you must have.
Well, all right. And so is that in writing anywhere?
Yes,
And what is the name of that document?
that would be the medical staff bylaws.
All right. And so then we had Dr. Hannah. Do you recall Dr. Hannah as being the subject of your review?
Yes,
Let's just assume for the purposes of this question, through other testimony and circumstances, that the hospital was informed that Dr. Hannah could and would be examining Maya Kowalski. What effect would that have on the credentialing process?
I believe it would have no effect. We would still follow our process as a medical staff. It's our job to make sure that people are qualified to treat children, so we would follow the same process. Again, I think it's
All right.
speculative. I don't recall that we did that, but
But he could, and if I'm understanding you, visit the patient as a visitor and converse with her, so long as he doesn't physically examine her or treat her, right?
yeah, he could visit her as a friend or a colleague, sure.
So if he was turned down at the front desk after applying, or excuse me, even though he didn't apply, but just coming in to see Maya, that would be wrong, would it not?
I don't have any control over security and their policies. We would follow our normal visitor policies at the time, so I can't speak to that.
Well, the patient's rights include to talk with another doctor or specialist at your own request and expense. It would appear then that the patient has a right to speak with another doctor at least. Is that true?
He would be visiting in a role of a friend, not as a physician, because he's not credentialed.
Okay. Well, so you're saying that to talk with another doctor or specialist at your own request and expense, it has to be on the phone?
In the hospital, you must be credentialed to act as a physician. So he could talk to his patient over the phone. He could get emergency privileges and treat her as a physician. But in the building, he needs to be a credentialed part of the medical staff to care for any patient.
Were you aware that there was litigation going on involving Maya Kowalski?
Not at that time.
That is a shelter hearing, shelter proceeding.
I probably knew that she was a shelter hearing, but I probably knew.
All right. Under those circumstances, then, did you nonetheless look at the doctor's background, training, and experience to determine whether he would have been approved?
He never applied or sent it in, so no.
You never did any independent research to determine whether or not?
I would have no need to do that. I've got a lot of duties, as I described earlier. I don't need to be doing extra work.
And as we've established, you can't say whether you were advised or not about that. True? Is that true?
Yeah.
But you have a rough idea of what risk management committee did?
Yes.
What did they do?
They look at trends and different things that pose a risk to the hospital. It's a quarterly meeting, so it's not a real time. It's usually retrospecting, looking back what's happened, infection rates, different risks that may be there. Again, and some of this I know just from reading up on it.
Okay. And when you say retrospectively, that means in the preceding quarter?
Yes.
And when you say quarter, are you talking about, for instance, the typical quarters of January, March, June, October?
Yeah,
like
that's
that?
what I assume that's the frequency.
Is it true that the board, based on the recommendation of the MEC, can allow someone on board onto the hospital to make an examination on an emergency basis without submitting their application for privileges?
That is exactly what I was referring to when I talk about emergency privileges. There's a shortened process where we do the basic checks for quality and safety. And yes, it is a recommendation. All medical staff decisions are finalized by the board. But yes, that's the emergency privileging process you're describing.
Sorry, I gotta make a note. Who was there to review what was happening to Maya Kowalski in real time?
So there's no need for a review in real time if the care is going well.
So the answer is no one.
Everyone. We're constantly monitoring our quality of care through multiple indicators, whether it's frontline staff, physician staff, resident staff. We're constantly looking at it. So if there's no red flags, there's no need to do a review of every single case.
What's a red flag?
If there's a concern with the care that we're giving.
Give me some examples.
If there's a concern for inappropriate medication use, prolonged stay in the hospital, discharging too soon, inappropriate floor, meaning need a higher level of care, something along those lines. There's some generalities of things we're always keeping an eye on.
All right, let me ask you about some different things and ask you whether they would meet the threshold for the risk management committee, and we'll work through the other ones. A patient such as Maya Kowalski being kept by the hospital against her and her parents' will for 7 days. Would that reach the threshold of something that would be reviewed by risk management?
And no, I mean, risk management committee meets quarterly, so that would not be appropriate.
So would it be reviewed retrospectively?
I do not know.
Would it be reviewed by the patient safety committee?
Probably not.
Would it be reviewed by the standards and credentialing committee?
Definitely not.
Can you think of any other committees that might review a patient being kept against their will at the hospital?
I don't believe we keep patients against their will, but it would probably be more of a team meeting with the care team and the family to discuss best process.
All right. The patient being prohibited from seeing her priest, would that meet the threshold for the risk management committee?
Again, the risk management committee doesn't function in real-time decisions. It's a quarterly meeting.
Well, then who at the hospital checks to make sure that the floor staff, the doctors actually involved, are doing the right thing?
So we have risk managers who are involved on a day-to-day basis that will interact with the staff as necessary. We have social workers for scenarios that you're kind of leading towards that would work together with the care team to make sure we're giving the highest quality care.
What if it's the social worker who's actually doing the things that are highly questionable, if not illegal?
We have physicians, we have risk managers would be involved, and I would like to say our social workers don't perform illegal activities.
Who makes the decisions or oversees decisions about compliance with court orders?
I would say that's probably our risk management department.
So in terms of, let's just say there are facts in the record that Maya Kowalski's priest was prohibited from seeing her in the hospital. You would agree that that violates Maya Kowalski's rights?
I wouldn't necessarily agree to that, and I don't know why the priest was denied, but I wouldn't agree to that.
Okay, so who was there then to review the actions of a nurse or a doctor or a social worker who came up with something like that out of their own head? Who was the next level to check to see whether that was appropriate standard of care?
It would be probably a team decision between the caregivers, the social work, the nursing staff, and again, likely risk management in this scenario.
And who's the superior to risk management?
I don't know. I would guess our legal counsel, but I don't know. I'm not in that.
And who does your legal counsel report to?
At that time, it was the president.
And other than the board of directors, was the president the highest authority at the hospital?
Yes, the president at the hospital, yes.
Let's ask about the child being stripped down to her underwear, short shorts, against her will, and photographs being taken of her without any court authorization, any authorization or notice to the parents, and against both the parents and the child's will. Would that be the type of thing that would meet the risk management threshold?
No, because I would consider that part of our standard care and treatment plan. We often will take pictures of patients to document for the medical record.
Make sure I get this right. Standard of care. So, Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, standard of care could include stripping a child down to her underwear and photographing her in a private room against the child's will, against the parents' will, and without notice to the parents, and without any court order or legal authority to do so. Am I correct in that?
I think the legal authority is the consent to treat. It's part of a treatment protocol. Many children object to things we do for them, right? If I'm suturing a child in the ER, they object. If we put an IV in their arm, they object. So a child's objection, I think, is difficult. We work with them. But yeah, it's taking non-patient identifiable pictures to help with the medical record, whether it's bruising, whether it's rashes, whether it's injury. It helps enhance the medical record. So it's part of a standard treatment plan.
But in every one of those circumstances, the parents are notified and give their consent. True.
We have consent to treat. So once they give us consent to treat and examine, that's all part of a physical exam and treatment plan. So yeah, that consent had been already given.
Well, can the doctors put a child into a surveillance room for 48 hours under false pretenses of testing without parent consent?
Yeah, I think we choose rooms for our families all the time without consenting families. And if we feel it's part of the treatment plan, I don't see that as a separate call out either.
What possible benefit to the child is it to put them in a room where they cannot reach the commode for 48 hours, knowing the child cannot walk?
and keeping her in that darkened room for that length of time?
Are you asking about this specific patient? I can't speak about this specific patient. And I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to get at.
When is Baltimore consulted in terms of standard of care?
Very rarely. And in 2016, probably never.
But the point is, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore was not monitoring the level of care that you were providing down here. True?
Correct.
And they were not influencing it anyway, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware from any source other than your attorney that Beata Kowalski committed suicide?
No.
So, to this day, sitting here, you're not aware that Beata Kowalski killed herself and left suicide notes which blamed Johns Hopkins' level of care. Are you aware or not? Are you aware?
I have no knowledge from outside sources.
Okay. Did you ever speak with any of the physicians that were involved in Maya Kowalski's care while she was there or soon after?
Just in regards to what we discussed with the potentially bringing in an outside physician.
Okay. So in that limited conversation, then I take it that you never learned that there were texts back and forth predicting Beata's suicide, right?
I have no knowledge of that.
And you would agree with me, though, that if a Johns Hopkins physician is aware that a patient or visiting parent is a suicide risk, that is something that risk management should consider.
Yes.
It's kind of an abrupt end, but that's the end.
Okay. Are we gonna have another deposition or?
We do.
I'm sorry?
Yes, we do.
So I'll leave the lights as is. And your next,
The next deposition is Dr. Anthony Napolitano.
hold on one second. I'm sorry? If there's a question, go ahead and write it out. And Mr. Whitney, while the jurors writing out, from a timing perspective, are we okay with the next deposition?
I think you said the breaking point is 11:30, is that right?
11:25.
It will be fine.
Doctor, would you raise your hand for me, please?
Hold on a second.
So they have some questions.
Apologize.
All right. Looks like there are a lot more. Are there other questions? I'm sorry.
Okay, members of the jury, one of your number had a couple of questions. Obviously, with a deposition, I don't have a live witness here that can answer that, but as you've seen, the attorneys are very aware of the questions that were raised, and I suspect they will address it in due course. And let's proceed with the playing of. Hey, is the lights okay? Do we need to dim it down some more? Okay, thank you. Let's.
Doctor, would you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you swear firm testimony you're about to give the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Anthony Napolitano.
Dr. Napolitano, do you understand that you are appearing pursuant to a directive by the court that the defendants produce someone with knowledge regarding the Risk Management Committee operations and issues regarding the chain of command and control?
Yes.
And have you ever served on the Risk Management Committee?
Yes.
What years?
I would say 2014 through 2019.
And what was your position, if any?
I served as chair of the Department of Pediatrics.
Who else in 2016 was on the committee with you?
It would be the chair of the Department of Surgery and members of the risk management team.
You're real soft. Can you speak up a little bit on this?
Sure. It would be Dr. Columbani, the chair of pediatric surgery, and members of the risk management team.
And who is that at that time?
I don't remember all the names. It would be Jackie Crane would be the name I remember.
And she was the general counsel?
I believe she was.
Can you tell this jury, from the best of your memory, whether the Risk Management Committee of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital ever took corrective action in any way about Maya Kowalski's considerations and situation?
Not that I'm aware. Not that I am aware.
How does risk management manage risk in real time?
We go back to our divisions and our care areas and look to see how we can help.
So you do or do not discuss things happening in real time?
No,
No, you do not.
we do not discuss real time.
So if a physician or a group of younger physicians makes a mistake, to the best of your knowledge, there's no one at the hospital that is there to correct them in real time.
It's not in real time.
There's no one there that was reviewing what the hospital was doing in real time, correct?
In real time, no.
So, for instance, if you had a social worker who was acting inappropriately towards a child patient, there was no mechanism by which risk management would intervene and try to stop that behavior. True?
No.
Did you know anything about, Doctor, did you know anything about what happened with Maya Kowalski?
I read about it. I read the article about 2 weeks ago.
But before that, as a member of the Risk Management Committee, you'd heard nothing?
I had heard nothing about the case.
And what other positions did you hold during 2016, 2017? What other committees and things were you on?
The Department of Medicine.
What was your position?
I was chair of the Department of Medicine, pediatric medicine.
And in that capacity, you didn't hear anything about Maya Kowalski.
No.
All right. What else were you on? What other committees and organizations were you on?
I would sit on medical executive committee.
And as a member of the medical executive committee, you didn't hear anything about Maya Kowalski?
No.
To the best of your knowledge, did anyone from the quality department, such as a vice president of quality, report to the medical executive committee about Maya Kowalski?
No.
Do you have any idea why you, as the chief Department of Medicine chair, would not know about a child being kept at the hospital for this long, or 3 months, involving court orders and an eventual suicide of the mother?
The care is managed at the division level.
Managed at the what?
The care is managed at the division or the treating doctor level with their care. It doesn't come up to me. I would not hear day-to-day operations or care like this.
What remedies were available to the patient, most likely the patient's parents, if the doctors at the treating doctor level were misdiagnosing or otherwise negligent in their care of the patient?
Object to form.
They would ask to speak with the division chief and ask to sit down and speak with him or her to discuss the concerns they had.
All right. And with Maya Kowalski, they're under allegations of child abuse. Who would that fall under as a division chief?
That would, for the care or for the care patient?
Yes.
That would be the division chief of hospitalist medicine.
So I know you didn't learn of it till recently, but you do know Maya was there under a court order, correct?
My knowledge is really from what I know from reading the USA Today article that I read.
Okay. And who was responsible then for assuring Maya's care was aligned or complied with a court order?
That would be the physicians caring for Maya.
And if the physicians were not monitoring the nurses and errors were made in her care, how would that be corrected so the child was no longer injured, hurt, or troubled?
It would be the nursing manager of the floor that Maya was on.
As chair of pediatric medicine, do the hospitalists belong to your department, pediatric medicine?
They're one of several divisions, yes.
The ones that what?
Yes, they would. The hospitalists fall under the Department of Medicine.
All right. And so during 2016, who are some of the hospitalists that were under your authority, if you will?
At that point in time, and this is reading from the article, would be, I think, Dr. Deese was one that I read, and
who was it? Sorry?
Dr. Deese.
Okay. Anyone else? Dr. Major?
She would be a hospitalist, yes.
See, how about Dr. Young,
Dr. Young, yes.
Dr. Carroll,
Yes.
Dr. Davidson, Danielson, excuse me, I'm sorry, Danielson.
Dr. The first name on Danielson is who?
Kristen,
Would be a hospitalist, yes.
so she'd be under your care, or your
Under the
authority.
hospital.
Okay, and throughout this period of time in the fall of 2016, did any of your hospitalists that we've mentioned here ever come to you with any concerns about the actions of any fellow doctors, nurses, or social workers?
No.
If they had come to you and said, the patient's complaining that she's being tortured every time she has to do this type of physical therapy, what would be the procedure? That's an example. What would be the procedure then once you received that report?
I would speak to the division chief to understand what was happening, ask for a report on what's happening.
Well, who is the division chief for that? What division are we talking about?
The hospitalist.
Well, who was the division chief in 2016 while all this was going down?
I don't remember. I have to go back. I'd have to go back and look.
To the best of your knowledge, has Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital done anything to change the way it operates since Beata Kowalski's death, Maya's stay there?
No.
In fact, most of the doctors, nurses, and staff like you don't even know what went down, do you?
From the article that I read is how I know about it.
But internally, coming from within the hospital, nobody ever brought to your attention what happened there. Is that right?
No.
Okay. And who was there to make sure that the patient's rights, as stated in this particular document, the guide for patients and families, who was there to make sure that the patient's rights under that were being upheld, honored, if you will?
The local leadership, the managers of the unit, the nursing managers of the unit, and the physician, the division chief.
Well, you just testified now that you don't treat adults. Who there is qualified to diagnose a parent as having a mental illness?
We don't have adult providers at the hospital, so we really do not manage adult care.
I take it the answer to your question is there isn't anyone there that is qualified to diagnose adult psychiatric issues.
Yes.
And that was true in 2016, correct?
Yes.
Looks to be the end.
That's it.
Then we announced the date. It's a bit hard to read on that deposition.
No, it's still going.
It's still going.
Oh, it is.
All right. So
Long break.
I'm going to ask you now about some allegations you haven't heard from your testimony other than popular media.
and ask you whether these comply with hospital policy. Maya's priest was prevented from seeing her. Does that comply with hospital policy?
I'm not aware.
Okay, she was prevented from having a computer or any electronic devices. Is that part of the hospital's policy generally with children? Not being allowed to have any food, any baked goods from parents or even her little friends. Is that hospital policy?
If a patient was on a specific diet, potentially.
To strip her to her underwear, short shorts, and physically hold her down to photograph her. Is that part of hospital policy?
I'm unaware.
All right. What about listening in on calls with her lawyer? Is that hospital policy?
I'm unaware.
Do you report to anyone in Baltimore?
No,
Have you ever?
no,
Is it true that the hospital, All Children's, continue to operate with essentially the same staff and same procedures and same level of care after Johns Hopkins bought it as before Johns Hopkins bought it?
yes,
If there is a truly egregious event at the hospital, and I assume there has to have been some over your tenure, what is the most direct line to the president?
I'd go to the president of Johns Hopkins Old Children's.
Okay. Do all department heads have access directly to the president?
At that point in time, in
Yes.
2016?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So what divisions are part of your department?
at that time.
Sure.
So it would be the cardiology, hematology, oncology, critical care, hospitalist medicine, genetics, infectious disease, neurology, rheumatology.
Well, if you had, then you would have had control over all of the doctors we mentioned from one department or the other, would you not?
I'd have a good deal on the medical side.
All right. And then how often would you have a meeting in 2016 with the heads of the departments?
We would try to meet monthly. Not everybody would attend, but we try to meet monthly.
And in terms of the discussions, do you recall any discussions, even in the general terms, about a child that was being held by court order in the hospital for a long period of time?
No, that would not come up in the division meeting.
How many times have you ever heard of a child being kept at your hospital for over 3 months against their will?
I'm not aware of that.
And so still, if that in fact is true, that was the circumstance, Maya was being held for over 3 months against her will and her parents' will at the hospital, that was not a significant enough event for any of the department heads to bring up?
No.
I see. So it doesn't really matter if the child feels that they're a prisoner, the patients feel the child is a prisoner. You're going to stick to your, what did you call it, methods of care?
Yes.
think I'm premature this time.
And this was from May 11th, 2023?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Can I see the attorneys for a moment? We're going to go ahead and take lunch now. And this is one of a meeting that was pre-planned that I had, so the fault's on me. I'm going to ask Deputy Coley if you could have them back ready to go at 1 p.m. We've got a full afternoon, so please be ready for a full afternoon. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not do any investigation and receive no information. We'll see you back at 1 p.m.
All right, first that's exiting.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Please be seated. So everyone knows we will be back at 12:15. Now, I do have another 12 or 13 minutes if you want to just start, or do you want to just take lunch now?
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, because I've got about 12 or 13 minutes.
And the time on that last deposition, Your Honor, was 19 minutes and 34 seconds.
That was just the one about Dr. Perno. I don't think
I'm sorry?
Did they give the time on Dr. Perno? I didn't think so.
It was 22 and like 40 something seconds.
Okay,
And the one before that was 23 and 21
Okay.
seconds.
sorry.
So I've got my list. Why don't we just start and then we'll pick it back up at 12:15.
You do have one motion you'd like to have heard before the afternoon witness, Your Honor.
You want to go ahead and do that one right now?
Me, Judge. Maybe longer than 10 minutes.
Oh, if it's going to be longer than 10 minutes, we probably.
Okay.
Well, what's the motion?
It's a motion to limit or exclude Dr. Corcoran's testimony.
Oh, we haven't seen that.
Got filed 2 days ago.
Well, perhaps they can look at it over lunch and then be ready to talk about it. So I guess it's back to you, Mr. Whitney, about exhibits.
Thank you. I'm going to start on the back page of the exhibit list we provided. And again, this is under the risk management file, which is exhibit 2277. And I'd like to focus on pages 630 to 631. You can pull up 2277 to 631. Your Honor, the email on the bottom half of the page was previously admitted with redactions.
Oh, yeah.
But we would, so we could redact the entirety of that from this email if necessary. But we would like to admit the top email from New Year's Eve with redactions, of course.
So when you say the top one, are you talking about the one at 219, talking about a transfer? Or the one
Yes, I'm sorry. Those two. That starting with that one, which is 2 lines, and then up to the top, that exchange.
Judge it. Sorry, I'll wait for court to stop reading.
Okay, and what was the status of the court order? It said, if I remember correctly, at this time it allowed Johns Hopkins to supervise the call specifically.
That's correct.
Within its.
Judges, this clearly all started with DCL.
Well,
it includes counsel referring to counsel. It's going to get further entrenched into the DCF hearings.
Your Honor, the relevance of this email is that Johns Hopkins has repeatedly taken the position that they were doing everything they could to transfer this child out of there. And that's the nature of the 2 lines at 2:19 p.m. It has nothing to do with, it's a medical transfer, it has nothing to do with a court order. And the top email, the first line of that email reveals the type of attitude that was being expressed to other facilities about the potential transfer. So it's relevant and necessary for us to push back on the idea that they were doing what they could to accept transfer.
Anything else, Ms. Quarles?
I just disagree with their aspersions and characterization of the email. They're trying to interpret, and presuming they're going to try to interpret for the court, what it means is not yet once they get wind of issues with the family. I mean, that's having to do with the dependency court.
This is what we're going to do now. The bottom email, the one at 6:12 p.m., either you need to redact it in its entirety or redact it consistent with how we previously redacted the predecessor email.
Understood.
the one at 219 that starts with thanks for the update, that entirety, those two sentences, or those three sentences will be unredacted. Those will come in.
I'm
without
sorry, I'm not
redaction.
following. Oh, there, okay.
And up at the top, the first line, which is three sentences, that will remain in.
And the remainder redacted.
Well, the answer is almost yes, but this concept about Maya's recent scratches self-inflicted, that isn't dependency related.
Right.
I think the sentence, plus we are exercising our right to listen in on the calls the best we can due to Maya's recent scratches self-inflicted, can stay in, because we're going to have an instruction that tells them as of this date that there was authority for Johns Hopkins to supervise the calls.
May I read that sentence to you, Judge? Mother shall have, and I'm sorry, I didn't. May I?
It's just a sentence.
Number 2 of the order.
No, it's the sentence, plus we are exercising our right to listen in on the calls the best we can due to Maya's recent scratches self-inflicted. That sentence would remain in. Who's taking notes as to?
I've got the notes. I have the email here, and I have the notes on the redactions, and I will make it happen over lunch.
Anything else about this email?
I'm not, did you redact the rest? I wasn't
Okay,
sure.
the only thing that's coming in on that very top email, the 739 email.
Can we have
is
it
the-
large again, please?
And Mr. Reyes, thank you, is the very first line, which comprises 3 sentences, the one that starts not yet once. That whole line stays in. And then the only other sentence that will remain in is the sentence that says, plus we are exercising our right to listen in on the calls the best we can due to Maya's recent scratches self-inflicted. Everything else will be redacted.
Your Honor, this is a bit nitpicky, but the 2 signatures there that just say sent from my iPhone, and we keep those.
Can you scroll it down so I can see what it says?
Just says at the bottom of the screen here, sent from my iPhone.
That's fine. That's not dependency court related.
Okay, thank you.
And then, of course, the next email in that chain, the 219 email, will stay in. And then the email below that.
We will redact consistent with the previous ruling.
Exactly. And so when you tender the redacted version, this will be called 2277-630A and 631A. And so the court will receive the A version as redacted.
Judge, I just like to reiterate our objection. We're going deeper and deeper down the DCF and dependency rabbit hole.
I don't think so, Mr.
Particularly in
Hunter.
light of the last 2 depositions and the court's rulings on our objection. So I feel constrained to put that on the record, Judge. We're parsing a course that can't be parsed. And I just have to object here.
And I appreciate it. And let me just give you my rationale, and then I've got to run. There are obviously causes of action that I have not allowed in because of Chapter 39 immunity. I don't have that order in front of me. I don't have the buzzwords in front of me. But it was, anything that was as a consequence of the call, and the actual dependency hearing is, obviously a consequence of the call. And I think I've been very clear about that. But there are other counts, including the medical malpractice, because Maya was a patient at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital concurrent to the time of the dependency court action. And there's also other counts, including the outrage count, negligent infliction of emotional distress, plus others. And so there is evidence that could be down the dependency court, but also is relevant to the other causes of action. And what I have been attempting to do is wherever I can to excise out anything that is purely dependency court. But if it's something that goes to a medical malpractice or one of the other counts in this case, even if it specifically or somehow references the dependency action, I'm leaving it in because the jury already knows about the existence of the dependency action. They're going to be instructed, and we've already somewhat instructed them, that the hospital is not responsible for Maya Kowalski being there and could not discharge her against a court order. So I don't believe that the evidence that has been coming in is improper given the causes of action that are actually pled that are outside of the Chapter 39 immunity. And with that, Mr. Altenburn, you get 15 seconds. And then
No, that's all I need. I just got to say, I need to review. We've been doing the objections in your rulings on the depositions in this kind of the wholesale fashion, so I don't get to see all of this. But there was a massive amount of information in Dr. Politano's deposition about being held prisoner and this and that and the other thing. And keeping in mind that count 14 is only a negligent training count, there was things way beyond that. And then we're talking about things that appear to be going to punitive damages that are after the fact conduct. None of that is admissible for punitive damages. So there's just a pile of things that got in that deposition that, Your Honor, I respectfully think are error.
Well, I appreciate that. Assuming that those questions were designated as objectionable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's what I want to
Some of them were, but then there were some of them in there that didn't, that sounded to me like I don't remember reading any of that. So I think some of what you're talking about wasn't actually designated. But I mean, I've been trying to rule the way I just articulated it just a moment ago. I mean, that's what I did last night with Dr. Is it Newberger? I mean, I sustained a whole bunch, but I let in some stuff. I cut pieces and, you know, look,
I filed a
I'm
motion.
doing everything I can to be fair to both sides with the causes of action that are allowed, those that are not allowed, and that's the way I'm going to continue to roll on it.
Certainly before Dr. Corcoran's testimony, I filed a motion, I think on Sunday, of trying to limit some things as to relevance because of these things, and we haven't really been able to hear that.
Well, I think that's what Mr. Hunter said, and I said that we were going to need to do it, and I really need
Yes, I know. Yes.
to go. Judge Moreland is on time all the time. Bye now.
All rise for the recess.